Just kidding, I had one more video to do before the end of the year, and that's for What If Season 3, which just finished airing yesterday. The series finale was yesterday, in fact, because this is the final season of the show, and I've talked about the first two seasons on the channel already, so I figured I would wrap up this year and the series as a whole by talking about this season. This follows a very similar format to the other two seasons in that we see a bunch of alternate timeline stories being told with a lot of the characters that we've known over the years, but they're doing very different things and there are very different circumstances that they are involved in, which are now making up the crux of the story. But at the same time, there is an overarching story over the entire series, which has been around the Watcher and all of the stuff that he's been witnessing, but also every now and then dabbling in affairs if something needs to be done. And that is something that is upsetting the other Watchers that he's under, because that might lead to catastrophe. And so the season is also dealing with that aspect of it as it is ramping up to a conclusion. It's kind of a baffling thing to end What If, because this is the kind of idea that you could run for honestly unlimited seasons. The idea of taking different characters and showcasing variants of those characters and doing all kinds of stuff with them, the possibilities are indeed endless. So the fact that they're ending it over here and they're wrapping it up, this particular story, feels like a missed opportunity to just, run hog wild with it and do way more with it. I don't know if they're gonna spin off into something else down the line. I believe Marvel Zombies somewhat ties into what's going on over here, so maybe there is a spiritual successor on the way. But otherwise, I feel like at the end of the day, there could have been some more. And there could have been some more is kind of the thing which I felt with What If Season 3 as well. There are shorts in this that I really enjoyed, and there are some episodes which are really, really fun. In fact, the one that got the most eyebrows is the one that I found the most entertaining, that being What If Howard the Duck Got Hitched. It's this episode where he and Darcy have a kid, and they're trying to take care of this egg, and that premise sounds ludicrous, and yet it's the one that's actually the most entertaining, because I feel like it really embraces the weirdness of what if. Like, yes, of course that happens in one of the timelines. Of course it does. That makes perfect sense. I mean, it's all kinds of silly and goofy and over the top, and it's easily one of the highlights of the entire season. I also really like the episode where Agatha becomes a big star in Hollywood and she's trying to awaken a Celestial and she needs the help of Kingo, played once again by Kumail Nanjiani, and their entire back and forth is also really fun. It even leads to a little bit of a Bollywood number from Kingo, which was much better than the one in Eternals, which, if we're being honest, but yeah, that was really nice. In fact, Eternals is something that plays quite a role over here because they reference that movie several times. It's like trying to tie it into whatever's happened. And I feel like that's going to happen a little bit more because it seems like the upcoming movies, a few of them seem to do with the celestial threat that came up in that movie. But we'll see about that. I did enjoy the voice work from all of the cast members, especially Jeffrey Wright, who I think once again does an incredible job as the Watcher, especially towards the end of the season. I thought he was really great over there. Catherine Hahn, Kumail Nanjiani, Anthony Mackie, Haley Steinfeld, Simu Liu, Seth Green, Kat Dennings, Tom Hiddleston. All of them did a very, very fun, job with their roles, and I think once again those things do stick out. Sometimes that was a problem I had with like the initial season, where it was like sometimes it felt a little awkward. Not so much in this case. This time it felt a little more like, everyone knew what they were doing. It was nice to see some characters again, including some of the side characters we haven't seen in a while. So to have their voices come back again was also really, really fun. But going back to the season itself, while there were episodes like that I enjoyed, even the one with Ironheart and the one in 1872 with Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop, there were some enjoyable stuff over there too. There was also a lot of episodes which felt like there was stuff happening that didn't necessarily feel like the finale of a series. Like, until you get to the last episode, which is titled aptly, What If? That entire episode is fun, and in a vacuum this season works fine. But as like a finale season, I feel like it does sort of feel out of focus. There are times where there are things going on which just feel like this is not where we should be right now if you want to wrap up a series. And so eventually when it builds to that conclusion, which is very visually creative and fun, and the animation in these episodes is really, really great. And at this point of time, I've kind of gotten used to the style, and I think all the stuff that's going on in the celestial sense with the Watcher and every thing that's surrounding their environments and all, really, really cool. But I also think that, again, but there should have just been a little bit more time to that. It also doesn't help that, again, some of the stories are not very interesting. Like the very first episode, titled What If the Hulk Fought the Mech Avengers, that whole episode with the Gamma War and stuff felt very awkward and very dragged out. It just lost its sense of fun very quickly. I remember we were about 6-7 minutes in. I was watching this with my dad, actually, and I paused it for a second and I realized there were still 20 minutes and it felt like we'd already seen an entire episode's worth of story. But it just went by so quickly that eventually I just didn't find myself too invested in that episode. The one where the Red Guardian and the Winter Soldier team up as well after the December 16th, 1991 assassination doesn't quite go exactly the way it does in like Captain America Civil War. That aspect of it also, some of it was fun, and again, it just sort of ran its course. And that's something that does happen quite a bit over here. Some of the stuff I really liked, though. I mean, even towards the ending, there were aspects of it that were introduced, especially when it came to the character of Birdie, who is Howard the Duck and Darcy's daughter. And she was very fun as a character. It was nice to see her play around with things a little bit, and she's voiced by Natasha Lyonne, who was very good in the role. And it's nice to see some of those returning characters along with her, like Captain Carter, Gowrie, and in this case, Storm also shows up. This is her first big MCU moment. So there are things like that to enjoy over there. But again, it comes down to the focus of things. It just feels all over the place, the season as a whole. And I'm trying to think about it, but I think this might be my least favorite of the 3 seasons. And I think a lot of this has to do with just the fact that there could have been so much more they could have done with it. Now, like I said, this is all sort of tentative. Who knows down the line if they try to do something that follows up on this in some ways. Maybe there's something more to be garnered over there. And if that happens, then, perfectly fine. But there was so much more that could have happened. And it doesn't quite do that. Something that across all 3 seasons now I've felt is that even though there are these episodes where they do some very interesting things, like I would say the best episode of this entire series is probably still the one where Doctor Strange is trying to keep Christine alive. That was in season 1. That episode was fantastic, but I remember thinking that I wish there were more things like that they leaned into. Oftentimes I felt like it was playing it too constrained. Like it kept wanting to stay to certain rules that were already established. But the thing about What If is that you can go past the rules. You can do all kinds of things. And I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but I wish there was a little bit more of that. So this is why I liked ideas like the Agatha Goes to Hollywood or Howard the Duck getting hitched and stuff like that. Those were interesting concepts. I also really liked that Ironheart episode because it, again, did some very different things with her taking on Quentin Beck after the Earth has been destroyed by the Emergence, and that entire storyline, especially with the concluding aspect of it, I thought some of that was very, very interesting. I also liked, again, aspects with the Watchers, but the other ones, especially the Eminence, I think voiced by Jason Isaacs, that was a very nice thing that they had going over there. So there are those moments over here that are very, very good, and there are things that do work overall in some senses of things, but I just feel like it's not as good as a season as it could be. And so, unfortunately, it's not my favorite of the 3 seasons. However, I also don't think it's a terrible season. The one thing I did like, though, towards the end was this idea of Watu, the one Watcher that we do know, telling the others, like, hey, you should learn to open your eyes and really see what else is out there. I mean, we watch, but there is more to it than that. Like, you learn a lot of lessons along the way about what people and heroes are capable of. And there is something really heartfelt about that. That's something that comes through, especially in the time that he's known Captain Carter, who is this major anomaly for the Watchers. And eventually, when this big fight breaks out between our core team that, the Watcher has learned to trust, as well as the other Watchers, eventually Peggy makes the ultimate sacrifice, and that variant of her is the one who just, blasts everything apart, and she sacrifices herself to stop the Watchers from destroying everything else. And so that aspect of it is very heartfelt, and it's a nicely done moment. It's bittersweet, but something that it comes up after that is, when they're doing this big funeral moment with her as the shield is going through the rest of the observational plane, and it just showcases these other possibilities of what other kind of characters we could have seen. And I was looking at that and thinking, I would like to see those. Like, there are things that you could do here. So if you have all of these ideas, do them. Because there is so much about this that feels like a season finale rather than a series finale. And I feel like we wouldn't have this problem about, things not working out if it was just another season of What If. And so overall, by the end of season 3, I found myself thinking, it's fine. Yeah, it was okay. There were some great episodes that came along in these seasons. Some were great, some were not so much. I think season 2 was actually my favorite one of the 3 seasons. I thought that was the most interesting one over there, especially post Loki season 2. But overall, it's a show that could have done a lot more, even though there were some times when it did. I'm gonna give What If season 3 a B-. So guys, thank you very much for watching. That was the final video of the year. We are done now. I said there was one surprise at the end of the Ant-Man video. This is not the surprise. That'll be in the new year. I thought I'll introduce it with that. So looking forward to you guys seeing that as well. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. Thank you very much once again for watching along with this year. It's been an absolute pleasure making these videos for you guys. It means the world to me. And as always, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. To those who have, thanks once again, and I will continue to see you guys in the new year.